This small paver walkway is in really bad shape, so we're going to redo it using the existing pavers and some old 4x4s that were lying around the house. Even the sand is repurposed from another project, so the entire DIY job was done for around 20 bucks to pay for new flowers and some black mulch. The existing base was really well compacted, so once the old pavers were removed, we only had to redo the top layer of dirt. We started by installing one of the 4x4 borders. This made it a lot easier to screed and level the sand base because we had 3 surfaces to range and measure off of. To install the 4x4, measure the space, mark the wood on all 4 sides, cut, and then screw the 4x4 in place with 3-inch exterior screws. We use at least 1 screw per side, 1 high and 1 low, to keep the wood from spinning or twisting when it's in the dirt. Use a square to make sure the 4x4 is installed on a right angle, and bang it down with a 2x4 and mallet before you screw it in. Remember not to bang the hammer directly onto the wood, or you could damage it. Once that's done, we have to make a screed out of a 2x4. Make sure the wood is perfectly straight, because the sand base will follow the exact contours of the board. Mark the edges of the screed where you need to cut, then measure the thickness of your paver, transfer the measurement onto the wood, and make the cuts. If you make the screed correctly, the top of the new pavers should be the exact height of the existing borders. This is a great method to use if you're installing a new patio in an existing space with established heights that you can't really change without redoing all the old work. Once the screed is done, start screeding the soil. I usually do a few passes before adding sand to knock down any high spots. After screeding a few times, you'll see which areas need more sand and which are flat. You can also compact the entire area a few times in between screedings if you think the base isn't compacted that well. Take your time with this step because it's really important. If the sand is flat, well compacted, and at the right height, laying the pavers is very easy. Remove any extra sand with a flathead shovel and a trowel, but be careful not to remove too much or you'll end up having to add more back in later. Once the screeding is done, lay a paver down and check the height with your screed. Lay one end onto the border and the other onto the top of your paver. If you did everything right, they should be level, and if not, you have to adjust the screed and redo the sand base until the paver and the borders are level on top. This walkway was a little tricky because we're doing a double border, one of wood and one of brick, and the brick pavers are 3/4 of an inch thicker than the inside pavers. So we had to remove some sand with a mason's trowel before installing the pavers. Once they're all in place, check them for level with a screed and bang them a bit into place. Then screed the main area flat again and remove any excess sand before starting to install the main pavers. The pavers we're using are 18 by 18 inch squares with a 4x8 brick border locked in place by a 4x4. It ends up being a really nice look because they're all different shades of gray, have a variety of textures, and are all made up of different materials. So the walkway isn't boring to look at, even though it's really small and didn't cost us anything to build. Once all the main pavers are down, remove sand with your trowel for the border pavers and 4x4 on the other side of the walkway. Install all your edge pavers, then mark and cut the 4x4 and bang it in place. It's important to bang this last 4x4 in place really hard and really tight against the edge pavers because it locks the entire patio in place, and that'll help prevent the pavers from shifting around over time. Mark the edges of the 4x4 on both sides, then connect the lines with a straight edge before you make any cuts. The reason we did it this way instead of making all the cuts square is because the old wood has a curve in it, and we wanted the new wood to sit tight and flush against it. If the cuts are all made correctly, the wood should fit into place and sit flush against the old 4x4s. Bang it in place with a block of wood and a mallet, then screw it in with 2 3-inch screws per side, one high and one low. You want to make sure to put one high and one low because it helps prevent the wood from twisting. You could also use longer 6 to 8-inch screws installed through the face of the old wood and into the new 4x4s if the wood is below grade and you won't see the fasteners. But in this case, the 4x4s are all above grade and we wanted to hide the screws. But if you did do it that way, you would still want to do one high and one low to help prevent any twisting. Once the borders are done, you have to make all your paver cuts. Measure the space on both sides, then transfer the measurements onto your paver. Connect the marks with a straight edge, and then make the cut. This method is used whenever the cut is on an angle. To make the cuts, we're using a circular saw and a 7 1/4 inch masonry blade. This setup works great for small DIY projects, but for a larger patio I'd recommend a wet saw. But if you do it this way, make sure to wear a mask because dry cutting masonry creates a ton of dust. Once the cuts are all done, they should slip into place and sit flush against the 4x4 border. Then tap them with a piece of wood and a mallet, or just a mallet all by itself to help lock them into place. The last step is installing the grout sand. For this walkway we're using regular mason sand because we had it already, and we wanted to do the entire job with existing materials. But if we had a little money to spend, I would have preferred using stone dust or polymeric sand. They're both better materials for a job like this than regular sand because they lock the pavers in tighter and don't wash out as easily, and we didn't have any drainage issues. Spread the sand out over the entire patio and then broom it into the joints. This step is really easy and almost impossible to mess up. And then once that's done, bang the top of the pavers with a board to help wiggle the sand down to the bottom of the joints. Then broom it all again. You can also use a little bit of water to help the sand drain down to the bottom of the joints if it's kind of sitting on top. The most important part of spreading the sand is to make sure that you get it down to the bottom of the joints as far as you can, because if it sits on top, it'll look finished, and then a week later all your joints will look empty. We finished the job by spreading some new black mulch on both sides of the walkway, and we planted some fresh white flowers in the concrete flower pot next to the pavers. This was the only money we spent on the entire project, and it only cost about $20. From start to finish, the job took about 6 hours to complete.